Welcome to the Biohacking Beauty Podcast. I'm your host, Amitai Eshel, the co-founder and CEO of Young Goose. Today, we're joined by Nathalie Niddam, who is a personal friend, really someone I highly admire her opinion and her knowledge within the biohacking space. She's a certified holistic nutritionist, epigenetic coach, and a leading voice in the world of biohacking and human health optimization. In her journey to overcome personal health issues, Nathalie mastered the art of tapping into the body's healing mechanisms. She now empowers others to take control of their health, blending neuroscience, personalized nutrition, biohacking, and resilience training. Nathalie also explores the world of peptides and bioregulators that are compounds that can potentially reverse the biological age and optimize our health. Apart from working with clients, Nathalie hosts the Biohacking Superhuman Performance podcast, which is one of my favorite, and leads the Optimizing Superhuman Performance Facebook community, which I have been actually a member of way before we met in person and became friends. So this podcast is something I was looking forward to sharing with you guys. In this podcast, we dive into, what are peptides, what are bioregulators, how do we use them to biohack our appearance. We explore different avenues of skin rejuvenation within the field of biohacking. We talk about stem cells, very small embryonic-like stem cells specifically, which is a procedure that she has done recently. And in general, we look at the world of skin optimization through the lens of Nathalie and through what she has learned. Before we get into this fascinating conversation, let's share a review from one of our valued listeners. Her name is Skin Health Guru, and they write, "This podcast has been a game changer for my skincare routine. The science-based approach is enlightening and the product tips are easy to incorporate." If you enjoy our podcast, please take a moment to leave a rating and review on Apple Podcasts. Your feedback helps us reach and educate more people and obviously enrich their lives. Now, let's dive into our conversation with Nathalie Niddam. All right, Nathalie, welcome to the Biohacking Beauty Podcast again for the second time. Welcome.
Thank you so much for having me again for the second time. It's
Listen,
always a pleasure to talk to you.
Absolutely. You are definitely one of the closest people to us. Sometimes also literally, and sometimes just over the phone. But obviously, we consider you like family, and it's very. It's very selfish because you're so amazing. Of course, we're going to claim you as family, right? We want some of that fairy dust.
Absolutely mutual. The feeling is 100% mutual. So I'm just happy that we keep getting to be at these events together.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, 100%. Yeah, and since we spoke last time on the podcast, I think one of the most amazing things with you, and I consider myself also lucky in that aspect, is that having a podcast platform allows you to really talk about things that you're interested in, mm-hmm. and constantly learning and evolving. And I think that's the gift of having a podcast. So a lot of what we're going to be like exploring today is your experience as far as like learning new things about biohacking, about how to look better, to improve the way that you look. So it's very important to have you over, seasonally to see where the Nathalie Niddam experience is in the world.
Yes. How are we progressing?
Yeah. And obviously you have become the go-to person in our field as far as relaying the gospel of bioregulator peptides, and Yeah, and that's probably like I mean we see it more and more as far as like the collective understanding of biohacking or longevity, their role. But you've been dealing with them for a while now, right?
Yeah. I mean, the bioregulators are so fascinating. So, for people who don't know, bioregulator peptides are essentially a subset of the other peptides we talk about, right? So, there's the peptides that Young Goose uses in their products. We've got the GHK copper, we've got the SNAP8, we've got, other proprietary peptides that you use in some of your magical formulas. And, people may have heard about BPC 157, which is body protective compound, or thymosin alpha 1. But the bioregulator peptides are a subset of that group. And they are, whereas the other peptides are anything under 50 amino acids long, the bioregulator, by definition, is only 2 to 4 amino acids long. So it's a very, very small sequence. It is naturally occurring in our bodies. We just make less of them as we age. And what they do when we make them is that they help to repair, to generate tissue repair at a cellular level in specific tissues, glands, and organs. So it's, what I find fascinating about them, because I'm always, we're looking at all these different technologies now. There's biohacking tech, there's supplements, there's people having E. coli with genes spliced into it, injected into their bodies so that they make more muscle. Like, there's crazy stuff going on.
Yeah.
But when we look at the bioregulator peptides, by comparison, there's nothing crazy about them. Like, this is straight from Mother Nature's playbook. And all we're doing is we're reaccessing them and introducing them into the body as we age to help to stimulate that regeneration.
Yeah. That's very interesting, because really a lot of the place of peptides in people's minds is kind of optimizing natural processes that happen in the body. And most of the time, people who are interested in them, or at least people who are listening to this podcast, they are not shooting for an Olympic medal, right? They're not shooting for superhuman, no pun intended, superhuman performance, rather than kind of revealing their best self. And that is what I think bioregulators is so impactful, is that this is really is looking at an organ, looking at a function, and saying, okay, what's the composition of signals that provides the best outcome for that tissue. So bioregulators are tissue specific, right? Are all of them tissue specific?
Yeah, they are and they're not. So if we look at the pineal gland bioregulator, which is called epitalon, or that's one of its many names, and there's different versions of each bioregulator. There's the actual extract from the gland that can be injected intramuscularly, which we don't actually typically have access to in North America. It's only available in Russia, and it would arguably be the most powerful of the versions. Then we have these tissue extracts that are desiccated and encapsulated, and those are taken orally. Those are more widely available. And then we have the synthetic version of that bioregulator, where the researchers isolated that 2 to 4 amino acid chain that really does the lion's share, the heavy lifting, if you will, when you're taking one of the more complexes. But if we look at the pineal gland bioregulator, of course, it has huge activity at the pineal gland. It helps to normalize melatonin. It helps, from a downstream effect, it helps to help the body to regulate and modulate hormone balance from a top down. There's research that says that it helps to activate telomerase to help to maintain and restore telomere length. Now, it's not going to make your telomeres super long. As you just said, the hallmark of the bioregulator is to modulate. It's to bring back the homeostasis. It is not to push over the line.
Yeah.
But there's also a lot of literature that says that the pineal gland bioregulator actually helps to restore function and rejuvenate the thymus gland.
Wow.
There's also receptors for the pineal gland bioregulator in the heart. So it sometimes, what we'll sometimes see, and in some of the literature, there was one passage I read where if we had the pineal gland bioregulator and the cartilage bioregulator together, the pineal gland almost got the DNA strand to unwind, and then it presented to the cartilage bioregulator a binding site so that the cartilage bioregulator could bind and initiate its processes. So I think that it's, as much as we say, we have a bioregulator for the pancreas and another one for the thymus gland and the central nervous system and the liver and the stomach and the lungs and the muscles and, like all these different groups. I think certainly on the geroprotector side, so these ones like the pineal gland bioregulator, there's an immune one called Villon, which also seems to have very much more wide-ranging effects. Like it's anti-tumor, it's powerful for the gut. So different bioregulators seem to have receptor sites in different areas in the body and exert their influence there as well, in conjunction with other ones. It's a complex dance, right?
Yeah, it is. It is, and it's funny because we as human beings, as people who are taking interest in health, there seems to always be a tendency to try and isolate something to a specific function. Like we saw it 10 years ago, 20 years ago, it was with thinking that specific genes are like the warrior gene, the fill in the blank gene. And as research goes on, we see that it's a complex of genes. It's in thousands of genes that the combination between them create, whatever that is. So we would be wise to kind of stray away from one function per action, right?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Look, the body doesn't operate in silos. And that's where sometimes we get in trouble when people have a health issue. And, quite often the conventional medical paradigm will look at a kidney problem, or they will look at a knee problem or whatever the case may be. And sometimes if we over specialize, we kind of miss the forest for the trees. Yeah. That knee is not just being affected by what is happening locally in the knee, but systemic inflammation is playing a role in the knee. The kidney, there's a million different things affecting that kidney. So of course, looking specifically at the kidney and its function is going to be really important, but what are all the other aspects that are affecting it? It's like, adrenal or thyroid issues.
Yeah.
We're crazy to only look at the adrenal gland or only look at the thyroid, because we know that they work together and they're part of this hypothalamic pituitary, like a whole HPA axis. Yeah. There's a line. So to your point, we're still catching up on the wisdom of the body and the complexity. And it's funny, there's Dan Stickler, who I learned a lot of stuff from. Dr. Dan Stickler speaks to the human body. It's not that it's complicated, it's that it's complex, right? And it's a very interesting nuance, because complexity simply implies that everything is connected to everything else. And I use his genomic panel, the Apiron genetic panel, in my practice. And the thing that is driven into us from the word go, and the reason why they don't provide it direct to consumer, is because just because you carry a gene for something doesn't mean that's what's going to happen. We have to look at the whole person. We have to look at everything else around it. And we have to look at a number of other genes that we know of so far. Yeah. Right? I've lost count of how many times they've updated that report. And the intention is they will continue to update it endlessly as we discover new things.
Yeah, definitely. And, talking specifically about the skin, I mean, this is the premise of this podcast, right? The premise of this podcast is saying, we have an outcome that we want. We want the best functioning skin, the best appearing skin we can have. But it is more complex than, let's use this molecule in this cream, or let's use this specific diet, or whatever that is. We definitely, I think first and foremost, to your point, is we need to reach homeostasis, right? We need to make sure that our body functions it stays out of its own path, its own way. Now, how can we create the instructions that we want to direct specific actions? So talking about that and bioregulators, obviously there is a bioregulator specifically for the skin, right?
Ish. Not
Ish.
really. Not
Okay.
really. I mean, we can. So there are people who believe, or it's a little bit like the story of champagne. You know, you can
Okay.
make bubbly white wine
Uh-huh.
in Canada, for example, but you're not allowed to call it champagne because it's not from the Champagne region in France.
Uh-huh.
GHKCU, the copper peptide, was discovered in 1973 in the United States by a doctor by the name of Dr. Lauren Pickard.
Mm-hmm.
The man who really did all the work on bioregulators has isolated like virtually all the bioregulators we know of, and many of which we don't know that he knows about, is Professor Vladimir Kavinson in Russia. So Dr. Kavinson in Russia did not discover GHKCU. It's not part of what he talks about. Now, GHKCU is a 3 amino acid peptide, and Lord knows that thing flips over 1,000 genes on and off. So it acts on DNA, which is the hallmark of a bioregulator peptide, is that it flips genes. And GHKCU is, if you had to name one peptide that affects the skin more than anything else, it would be GHKCU. So I interviewed someone not that long ago who says GHKCU is a bioregulator. Just because Kavinson didn't discover it doesn't mean it's not a bioregulator. So maybe it is, and definitely this is a peptide that's been shown to, and it's interesting that it's been quite heavily studied. So it's been shown to positively impact thinning of aging skin. It's been shown to positively impact wrinkles. It's been shown it's magic for wound healing. It affects fibroblasts. It helps to increase GAGs, so those glycosaminoglycans that I probably butchered that word.
Glucosaminoglycans.
Glucosaminoglycans, that's it. I'm trampling on your turf here, but which is so important for retaining moisture in the skin, which ultimately is one of the many things that happens to skin as we age that causes it to look not like how we want it to look. But in traditional bioregulators, other compounds that would affect skin, and to your point, it's not just about this one bioregulator, it's what else can impact the skin. Well, there's the cartilage bioregulator, and you're going to say to me, well, cartilage is connective tissue between, it's cushioning joints. But what that cartilage bioregulator does is upregulate the production of collagen and elastin, which GHK also does. But we know that collagen and elastin, of course, is critical to the integrity and appearance of our skin.
Yeah.
Then we have the blood vessel bioregulator. You know better than anybody, if we don't have good blood flow to the skin, we're not going to have as good an outcome. We need to be able to bring nutrients to that skin, to those skin cells, to the fibroblasts, and remove waste products.
Yeah.
So, there's no one hit wonder here. And as you alluded to, our internal health has everything to do with this beautiful sheath we were gifted with at birth, right? This envelope that some of us didn't do a great job of taking care of in our youth, and we're trying to play catch up now.
Yeah, it's super interesting because when I start a conversation with someone that is, a lot of people wake up, in air quotes, when they're 40, 35, 55, whatever that is, they wake up one day and they say, I was not making good decisions until this point, whatever they are, internal, external, and I would like to turn back time. I think it's a common feeling everyone has, whether it is the way they look or feel or something that happened in their lives. But when we do talk about the skin, it's important to communicate that what happens is that as our body ages, the priority, the way that our body prioritizes repair shifts and changes. Obviously, after menopause, it is more apparent. And the skin, from a communication organ, from an organ that communicates vitality and sexual maturity, becomes more and more the sacrificial organ to protect our body from the environment. And priority for repair really, really, really shifts. And the first thing, and I think that's kind of going in loops here, but coming back to homeostasis and bioregulators, the first thing we need to do is to rejuvenate the inside, rejuvenate, different organs that might not function correctly, have them, function like younger organs, and then there is a place for our skin to be repaired. And there are so many ways to look at it, whether it is through inflammation, whether it is through, energy production, oxidative stress, epigenome, whatever that is. As we said, one thing affects a lot of things and vice versa.
Yeah. Well,
So,
yeah, sorry, go ahead.
no. I was just thinking of where, let's say we are following that paradigm, the paradigm of, okay, let's dial in things from the inside out. We have that tool that's called, peptides in general and peptide bioregulators as a focal point. How do we use them in order to create that change from the inside out, culminating in, skin repair? How would you take that?
Yeah, it's a great question. And I think the things we have to look at is what are the things typically that are out of balance in the body that we need to restore balance to, right? Because what we know and what we've learned over time is that the internal health is being reflected very often in skin. So, your digestive system, is it in good shape, right? People who have either a compromised gut integrity, so they have leaky gut, people whose liver is overburdened with all kinds of whatever, whether it's current or from the past, whether it's chemicals or bad fats or foods or whatever the case may be. Supporting liver health is critical because the liver is in charge of processing all of the toxins that we come in contact with, even through the skin. So liver health is critical. That gut integrity is critical. Frankly, even someone who's chronically constipated, their skin is going to suffer because all that waste material that's stuck in the colon a lot of the waste gets reabsorbed into the body because it can't get cleared. The kidneys are really important. Like, I don't think you could speak to an organ system, right? Like we talked about the blood vessels earlier, like having healthy blood vessels is going to be a massive piece of the puzzle that's going to show up in skin. Maybe, the adrenals, the thyroid gland, even the pituitary gland. Like when we look at peptides that can help skin, we're not always just looking at the copper peptide and the cartilax or vestigen. We might be looking at growth hormone secretagogues. Because if we restore our growth hormone production to not super physiologic levels, it actually has benefits for skin as well.
Within that, 100%. Within that, first of all, just a small anecdote there, and it's something that I think if people try to now look for it, it's going to be a wild goose chase. Again, no pun intended, but there used to be a heart medication that was a vasodilator that would be prescribed off-label by doctors for skin anti-aging.
No kidding.
Yes, but first the drug is off market now, and the people who prescribed it are also, let's just call them off market now.
Okay, and actually, I left out hormone balance.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Of
and
course,
I think
hormones are critical.
100%, and also obviously like pituitary sleep. For sure. In general, I think the skin is a mirror to our, saying that the inside is again complex, but how about just the ability of our body to repair itself? It is a direct mirror of that.
Yeah.
So would you just suggest, hey, we have 21, correct me if I'm wrong, we have 21 bioregulators that we know of that are available. Just take all of them and have your body just function optimally. How do you look at it?
Well, it depends. Now, first of all, one thing that I'm pretty focused on communicating to people is that the bioregulators themselves can be very powerful, but they can't do it alone. They're team players, so they need all the other foundations to be in place.
Yeah.
Right. And I do think that there's other peptides that also help with skin. So I just mentioned the growth hormones, secretagogues like the CJCs and ipamorelins, those guys. There's also, for people who have a lot of skin inflammation, there's a peptide called KPV that can be really, really very beneficial, actually, even for treating the inflammation from the outside in and from the inside out.
Yeah.
We have a peptide, the alpha MSH peptides like melanotan 1, melanotan 2. Now we think of those as the Barbie doll peptides that stimulate melanin so that we get tanned very quickly. But there is some research that shows that they may actually protect this, help the skin to be protected against UV radiation.
Yeah.
There's still a lot of research going on in this area, and definitely anybody who has a history of melanoma wouldn't
Yeah.
play with those because it's a system that's not been properly explored. And because the stimulation of those melanocytes, the melanin, there's a few reported cases of recurrence of melanoma. Now, did it push the melanoma out, or was the melanoma already there and just got pushed up, or did it cause it? Nobody has the answer to that question.
Yeah.
Right. But moving on, like peptides like BPC 157, that body protective compound 157 is going to assist in healing the gut, but it's also a powerful wound healer. So we have this whole, so these are the other peptides. There's the GHK copper, of course, which topically we can use the GHK with the copper like you have in your formulas. And for those who are willing to use GHK internally, we can also use it systemically in that it may help to flip some of those genes from within. So we're not just relying on the topical effects. But when it comes to the bioregulators, and to answer your question about the 21 bioregulators and should we just all be using all of them, it depends. It depends on your age. It depends on your stage of life. It depends on your goals. And to be brutally honest, it depends on your budget.
Yeah.
Right? None of this stuff is cheap. So what I encourage people to do is to sit down with someone, take a look at what are the things that you're dealing with? What is it? Where do you need to pay attention? What are your goals? Have you done some kind of biological age test so that you understand, you get some metric as to, am I aging faster or slower? Do I have certain issues? Do I have points of weakness in my system, right?
Yeah.
Is it my stomach, my pancreas, my liver, whatever it is? And then we focus attention on these areas. But we almost always will include the pineal bioregulator, the blood vessel bioregulator, and the thymus bioregulator. Because if we can address circadian rhythm, immunity, and blood flow, circulation, then we've opened up a lot of the gates for the body to take care of a lot of the issues it comes up against.
You know what? Do you know what you remind me? It's first of all incredible, and the funny thing is obviously I give a pretty nerdy talk about why skin senescent cells are affecting our entire organism, the aging of the body, and really, if I let myself run wild and go into the nitty gritty of it, the three aspects that skin senescent cells affect are senescence in blood vessels, senescence in the immune system,
Yeah.
and senescence in the HPA axis,
Wow.
which is
Yeah.
which is
Yeah.
again the
It's
kind of
huge.
the
Yeah.
three
And
areas
to
that
your point, to your point, you've got senolytic compounds in your skincare to help with the surface. But if we're not addressing senescent load in our bodies systemically through some protocol, so I use an herbal formula that I use 2 days a month that can help to reduce my load of senescent cells, we have to be able to be doing the things that clear the way for, and I always keep coming back to this because especially in the absence of serious disease where you've got major imbalances going on, if you're reasonably healthy, if you can get some of these obstacles out of the way, it is amazing what your body's going to be able to do.
Yeah.
Having said that, when it comes to reversing skin damage, when it comes to reversing the visible age of skin, that is not a priority that our body has.
Yeah.
And I think that if anybody's listening to this who's in their 30s, their 20s, frankly, even your 40s, the skin damage that shows up in our mid 40s to our 50s and beyond happened decades ago.
Mm-hmm.
So take care of your skin now, because it's a heck of a lot easier to keep it than it is to wake up one morning and notice the damage and try to dial the clock back.
Yes,
Right? We
definitely.
have to go At that point, we have to go to measures that are above and beyond putting a cream on our face to really get a visible outcome. We're
Yeah.
still going to have, like, I mean, we can use the beauty products and we're going to have healthy skin. But when it comes to restoring the aesthetic that we're looking for, you're now in a world where if there's enough damage has been done, you're now in a world where you have to go beyond
Yeah.
the lines that a lot of people are willing to go or have the means to go to. And the cool thing is that we're at a point in time right now where these regenerative techniques are exploding.
Yes, that's true. I think, the way that we normally describe it is like re-breaking a bone, right? If you're young and healthy and your bone are aligned, you obviously can do much more to keep your bones from breaking, rather than if there is a bone like a wrinkle, we could equate it to a bone that didn't heal
Mm-hmm.
correctly, and now there's no inflammation involved anymore. The body has completed the process of repairing that bone, but it has been repaired incorrectly. So if we want to, delete that damage, if you would, we need to go back, re-break that bone, and have the body now heal correctly. And what are we really doing? Yeah, we broke the bone, etc. But now we are communicating through inflammation to the body, hey, this needs repair. And that is kind of the way that we need to communicate with the body. Obviously, as we grow older, the ability to respond to inflammation is
Mm-hmm.
also impaired. So as to your point, the earlier we start taking care of our skin and preventing a lot of the damage would also benefit us, because we're going to have less damage, but also is going to benefit us because our body is going to be more competent in the ability to respond to that damage, right?
Yeah. No, absolutely. I 100% agree. So it's, and it's for those of us in this space who are in our few further down the road decades, let's say, we have big decisions to make,
Yeah.
right? We have to, and these are some of the most personal decisions that you get faced with. Like, how far are you willing to go to change the way you look, right? To impact the way you look, and and how badly, like, how much do you want to go there?
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like, I mean, I'm never one to judge anyone. I just know what feels good and in integrity for me.
Yeah.
And beyond that, everybody's got to call their shots. Like, as you know, I just recently, went for a procedure where I had very small stem cells isolated from my blood and reapplied to my skin, which involved breaking the skin barrier
Mm-hmm.
over and over and over again. I can't say it was the most pleasant 3.5 hours I've ever had.
Uh-huh.
Um, and some people would say, well, why would you do that? There's nothing wrong with your face. Like, why would you? There's a lot of judgment right now in the world about what, and frankly, men too,
Mm-hmm.
primarily women, but what people are doing to maintain and restore their looks. And these are lines that we all have to navigate on our own with ourselves so that we can look in the mirror one day, any day, and say, I feel good about this.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I think this is a very interesting discussion as far as, first of all, putting a mirror in front of someone else and making them uncomfortable because they either can't afford or choose not to, or whatever
Yeah.
that is,
Yeah.
to tackle those apparent signs of aging. That's number one. I think it's a lot of the responses people get are knee-jerk responses that people have because they are faced with something they don't want to think of day to day.
Mm-hmm.
As far as looking in the mirror and liking who's reflected in the mirror. Obviously, there are things that are mm, necessary, unnecessary, subjective. But I think what is not subjective is being proud of the person that's looking at you from the mirror. And for a lot of people, it's being proud of how they took care of their skin, not only from the inside. Some people,
Mm-hmm.
it's not important for them at all.
Yeah.
But I think if we are proud of the way that we look, we also have a feeling of a can-do attitude. Basically, I think if we feel vibrant, and we feel that we also look vibrant, it also pushes you to 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 feel good as a whole, right? To love yourself as a whole.
Yeah.
Some people more, some people less, but yeah.
Yeah, and the thing I want to highlight there is it's not premised on anyone's looks.
Hmm.
That this doesn't mean that someone looking in the mirror who's seeing a lot of skin damage, like sun damage and wrinkles and sagging and whatnot, can't be fully in love with themselves and be
Yeah.
vital and amazing and be perfectly happy and comfortable. That's awesome,
Hmm.
right? It's where you are right now. Like
Yeah.
my personal value and worth and how I feel about myself is not about my skin,
Hmm.
but if I can, help my skin along, and maybe I'm paying it back for all the service it's given me all these years. And I'm trying to make up for some of the abuses that I put it through, namely being a lifeguard. um, and maybe enjoying having a tan a little bit too much over the years,
Uh-huh.
um, then that's great. I don't particularly think of it as a self-worth thing. I think of it really just as an aesthetic. And I
Hmm.
think that beyond, once we get to the point where I have healthy skin, my gut is healthy, my insides are healthy. So once I got all that lined up, then if I want to lean into doing whatever I can within my world to help my skin look better and be also in some ways healthier, because some of these regenerative treatments are actually very healthy,
Yeah.
right? Then yay me. That's
Yeah.
that's that's what I need, right? But the next
Yes.
person, I know that there's a lot of women out there, and I think it's, who are virtually kind of pushing all this stuff to the side, and in some ways it's a reaction against the media and the world that has put up this ridiculous image of what women need to look like to be beautiful or to matter
Hmm.
or whatever the case may be, and I respect that,
Yeah.
right? So I'm going by my own guidance. Certainly there's a lot more that I could be doing. And I was explaining to you just before, I had a big argument with the woman who was working on my face. No, you need
Hmm.
more of this. And I'm like, no, I don't. I need to
Hmm.
look like me. And I'm proud of my crow's feet.
Hmm.
Like, I like my wrinkles. I don't mind them. I just
Hmm.
don't want too many of them.
Yeah, I think it's funny. I don't remember, there was an actress who said, I think it's probably, I don't know, one of the famous actresses that are now older than what they started as when they were on the big screen. She said, "I don't want to look younger. I just don't want to look older." So
Yeah, I can relate to that. It's not that I don't want to look like my 30-year-old self. I mean, look,
Mhm.
who wouldn't want to look like 30-year-old self? I would love to look like my 30-year-old self. That's not my goal. My
Yeah.
goal is to look like the best version of who I am, where I am in my life as I can
Hmm.
look like,
Yeah, beautiful.
right? I'm not trying to fool anybody. I'm going to be 60 years old this year, which kind of rocks my world when I even think about it. But I just want to look like the best version of me at that age that I can.
100%. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And talking about the V cells, which is very small embryonic like stem cells that you had injected, that's a very interesting dynamic, right? Because what it is, it's first of all, we are breaking the skin barrier. We're basically re-breaking the skin. We're introducing controlled damage, and then we're giving the skin kind of the ultimate repair fuel, which is new cells that can form and take place of that broken tissue. So as far as like rejuvenation treatments, obviously this is very, very, very beneficial. But to your point, there is always this dance within the rejuvenation treatment. We're not talking necessarily about like Botox and fillers, which are kind of result result driven. We want to
Mm-hmm.
look like we are younger, but we're not actually rejuvenating anything, right? The appearance of rejuvenation maybe, but real rejuvenation treatments, we're always dancing between what is the demand for repair that depletes us of those of that reservoir of youth at a later age, if you know,
Mm-hmm.
or what is the so how do we fuel repair and how much damage are we introducing? I
Yeah.
think that's a big deal within. Yeah.
Yeah. No, and you need someone, excuse me, you need someone very skilled that you trust when
Hmm.
it comes to this stuff, because I'm sure you've heard them. There are horror stories out there of people that went a
Hmm.
little too far. They tried to do it themselves. And like with the microneedling, if you don't have the right equipment, if you don't know what
Yeah.
you're doing, you can actually create more trauma than your body can repair. And
Yeah.
then where do you end up? Right.
Hmm.
So, but
Yeah.
we have our tools to assist when we do things like V cells, right? Like I told you, like I was walking around with my bottle of bio barrier because I was flying the next day and I was just
Yeah.
slathering my face. I mean, I looked slightly awful because there's some kind of bruising going on, but I was slathering my face with over and over again,
Hmm.
just to protect and restore at the same time.
Yeah. So, looking at some of those processes and looking at signals for repair in general, your I would say your experience kind of made you an expert in support, even if you don't call it that, really supporting repair processes through
Hmm.
biohacking, through
Hmm.
bioregulators, through
Yeah.
different techniques. What is some of the things that you rate very high in supporting a repair process? Because it's kind of genius. We really don't need even to know what the repair process is, right? We know, okay, some inflammation and some call for repair has been introduced to the body. The protocol of how to support it is pretty much the same. So.
Yeah. So I think the first thing is you don't want to interrupt the inflammatory process too soon,
Mhm.
right? So for the first couple of days, the inflammation that's there needs to be there. We
Mhm.
don't want to be pounding a bunch of anti-inflammatory. So what I used heavily at the beginning were essential amino acids.
Mhm.
I used nitric oxide support to just help those blood vessels, to deliver. And then the other thing, oh, and then I used a supplement by a good friend of ours, Stem Regen,
Yeah.
right? For my body to mobilize and release even more stem cells. Because as you said, there's been an assault, there's been
Mhm.
damage, there's inflammation. And so we want all hands on deck.
Yeah.
And coming out of that, like, obviously, I mean, I definitely, my GHKCU comes out of the bag.
Mhm.
My Young Goose products that have, all the beautiful peptides in there that I know are beneficial. There's the bioregulators. I'm doing a stack right now with the blood vessel bioregulator, the cartilage bioregulator, and I'm doing also the pineal gland, because the pineal gland just kind of it's
Yeah.
it's kind of like everybody's buddy, right?
Mhm.
And I did some BPC 157 for a few days as well, just to provide support to the whole body. Um, Hydration
Mhm.
is critical. Like
Yeah.
my adaptogenic hyaluronic acid boost from you
Yeah.
guys. Um, the mask,
Yeah.
the hyperbaric oxygen mask. I mean, all these things. So, you go through this process where you just sit there and go, okay, how can I support the healing now?
Yeah.
What needs to happen? We need blood flow. We need nutrients. We need the materials
Yeah.
to repair. That's what the essential amino acids are all about.
Mhm.
Um, you know, I'm, I mean, somebody, I think it was Drink HRW sent me this new collagen drink that they made, which is beautiful and has a type of collagen I've never even heard of before. So I've been drinking that. So, bone broth would be an amazing thing to be drinking now, to give the body, just provide the body with those materials that it needs to heal and
Yeah.
repair. And it's going to take a little while, but we've already seen some signs of change, so it's all good.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, as we talked off air, one of the big tells of skin aging or overall body aging is the skin around your ears, actually. So yeah,
Which
some
is
nice.
weird. I never knew that.
Yeah, yeah. So that you had a nice interaction with your hairdresser.
No. So so ladies at a certain age, we right in front of the ear on the face,
Uh-huh.
there's a couple of kind of deep wrinkles that appear there, and it's probably because things are coming down, right? So
Mm-hmm.
there's pulling down on the face. And let's just, clarify that part of skin aging isn't just skin, it's also the structure underneath the
Mm-hmm.
skin that starts to give way, right?
Yeah.
The losing fat, the bone structure. So we have to take care of our bones, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
Osteoporosis isn't just about breaking bones. I mean, that is probably the most critical thing, but maintaining bone mass is a big deal when it comes to facial structure. But
Yeah.
anyway, we have these deep grooves here by the ear, and a week to the day after I had this procedure done, I go to, get my hair, get my roots done, this, that, and the other thing. And I'm, of course, yapping to my stylist about all this stuff. And she's fascinated.
Mm-hmm.
And I had my picture of my ear and I said, look, I can't see that, but here's what it looked like a week ago. And she's like, let me see that. And she pulls my hair back. She goes, oh my God, it's gone.
Yeah.
So in the space of a week, it is remarkable what the body is capable of
Mm-hmm.
if we can give it that, and of course, sleeping on your back. This is a problem. I just want you to know I'm a devoted side sleeper, and I've been making myself sleep on my back all week
Uh-huh.
because, the lady that did my treatment put the fear of God into me. Do not sleep on your side. You're going to smush your face, this, that, and the other thing. And I'm sure there's people listening going, oh, for the love of God, just get over it. Just sleep on your side. Do what you need to do. But at least for the first little while, I wanted to give myself all the chances of healing as I could.
Yeah, I mean, there are a few tricks as far as like sleeping on your back. One is having like a 5-degree angle. That is actually allegedly the optimal angle we should be sleeping at. So
So, like a bit of elevation, you mean?
a slight bit of elevation, like if you basically um, put like take 3 pillows, 4 pillows, and have pillows like propped up against your back, just a one pillow against your lower back, one pillow against your upper back, and then a couple pillows supporting your head, or have a bed that has a very slight incline.
Right.
And the other, there are pillows that are supporting, back sleepers. So
Mm.
that could be a good introduction. And obviously, if you are a side sleeper and you want to have like a silk pillowcase,
Oh, I have that.
yeah, that helps tremendously because it obviously there are some other like antimicrobial benefits there, but it's mainly because it allows the skin to move and not get smushed in
It's
like
just
weird positions.
completely stuck. Yeah, no, when I discovered my silk pillowcase, it was a total game changer for me. I buy them
Hmm.
for presents for people. I'm like, you need one of these if you don't
Uh-huh.
have one.
Definitely, and they also hold on. I feel like they hold on to essential oils. If people like, dripping essential oils on their pillowcase, I feel like they hold on to essential oils better than
Yeah,
like a normal cotton pillow.
absolutely. Well, I travel with mine. Do you travel with yours? I mean, one of my anxieties as I'm packing up to leave a place is don't forget the pillowcase. Don't forget the pillowcase.
Well, thankfully, I have my trusted advisory board. Her name
Yeah,
is
yeah.
Anastasia, and she does everything.
And she's on
Uh,
that stuff big
oh
time
yeah,
for
for
sure.
sure. So, a big part of supporting recovery starts before we did anything. I think that's something that we again are just not good at as as a species, right?
Hmm. Thinking ahead.
Understanding, yeah,
Yeah.
thinking ahead. And I would like to see people, whatever procedure they're doing, I would like to have, our skin basically renews itself every 21 to 28 days. I would like at least like double that time for people to really dial in reducing inflammation, like in the
Hmm.
body as a whole, having a lot of omega 3s that they're intaking, which we just had a very, very, very interesting podcast about, actually. Um, Increasing NAD in the skin and their body as a whole. Um, Really, really, really dialing in the body for repair.
Yeah.
Do you have any strategies about that? Like, what would you recommend someone to do to prepare their body for repair?
So I will say that I used that stem regen supplement
Yeah.
for at least a week, because what happens is after 5 days of use, your the number of stem cells in your bloodstream peaks.
Mm-hmm.
So I definitely did that.
Mm-hmm.
It just so happens that that procedure was a culmination after 5 days of NAD IVs that I did, which I think was probably, perfectly timed.
Yeah.
Again, in terms of giving the body a boost at a cellular level energetically.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of the other stuff you're talking about, I mean, this should be part of our foundation regardless,
Yeah.
right? Addressing inflammation, addressing omega 3 balance, using the essential amino acids, all of these things should really be the foundation from which we hope to be better.
Yeah.
And
100%.
yeah,
I think, obviously now, coming into his, into fame is Brian Johnson, the person that
yes,
invests $2 million a year to dial back his age. Very interesting guy. Obviously, that is canary in a coal mine, right? It's not like all of us now need to spend ungodly amounts of money to look better or feel better. But some of the things that he says as a paradigm, or as a worldview, is very interesting, such as like treating yourself as a longevity athlete.
hmm,
I think is super important. Um, Understanding that these micro decisions that you make are the things that build you in the end, I think is super important. Um, what are some of the, going beyond the bioregulators, which you're known for, and peptides in general, what are some of the things that, by having, a podcast that is directed towards biohacking our health, what are some of the things that you are interested in as strategies for longevity, um, or just health as a whole?
yeah. So, I mean, I guess we get into the biotech at this
Hmm.
point,
Yeah.
right? We get it, and which includes things like sauna, which
Hmm.
I'm a huge fan of. And I mean, because look, when we talk about peptides, I can't use growth hormone secretagogues.
Yeah.
Like, I'm allergic to them, right? But
Hmm.
guess what? Sitting in a sauna and cranking up the heat will actually upregulate your production of growth hormone.
Hmm.
Actually, the other thing that I did a lot of around, and still do around, this last procedure, but I've been doing it all along, is katsu, right? So
Hmm.
blood flow restriction training, where, this is not only going to improve your circulatory system, but from a longevity perspective, it increases your production of growth hormone, it increases your production of testosterone,
Yeah.
it makes the most out of whatever exercise you're doing or even not doing.
Yeah.
Things like rebounding to keep the lymphatics moving, things like red light and infrared light therapy. So I've got this beautiful panel. It's in my bathroom so that I start every morning and finish every day in front of that panel. And then, any, and then getting outside,
Uh-huh.
right? Making sure that, I mean, in terms of the work that we do, it's so easy to get up in the morning, and particularly because I work from home, you work from home,
Uh-huh.
it's so easy in our pajamas to just trundle over to the computer, sit down at 8 o'clock. I'm just going to do one thing while I have my
Uh-huh.
coffee. And then it's 5 o'clock in the evening. You haven't moved, you haven't eaten, like, you've done nothing, right?
Yeah.
So making sure for longevity, and when it comes to Brian Johnson, I mean, obviously what he's doing is admirable and amazing, and he's gotten great results. But I can tell you that I've spoken to a lot of people, including myself, who are younger biologically than we are chronologically, and we're not spending $2 million a year. So look, I'm sure that he is light years ahead of where I am. But to me, I want to be able to enjoy my life. I want to have some fluidity, and and I want more ease. right? And I think that living in ease and in flow with your goals and aspirations, and maybe not being so obsessed to living a crazy long time. And this is going to be very controversial, but at the
Mm-hmm.
end of the day, I want to live really well. I want to be happy. I want to take care of my body, my mind, my spirit, all the things, and live as well and as long as I can without driving myself nuts over it.
Yes.
Like,
Yeah.
which maybe is a bit of a contradiction, but because you have people that are channeling all their energy into this project, and that's fine if that's your jam. But I do think that there's a line that we need to respect. And again, it's a little bit like what we were talking about earlier. It's very personal,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
I mean, I could argue with you, Amitai, that going and getting yourself beat up every night doing what you're doing, martial arts,
Jiu-jitsu. Yeah.
the jujitsu, is probably not a great longevity strategy.
Yeah.
Like, it
Mm-hmm.
just isn't.
That's
But
right.
you get so much pleasure from it. You're good at it. It keeps you vibrant and alive and a little bit bruised a lot of the time. But like, but are you supposed to live in a glass bubble so that you can squeeze a few extra years out of your life? Or is it more important for you to lean into all the things that make sense to you, take care of yourself properly, and allow yourself the enjoyment of certain things that maybe, yeah, maybe jujitsu's not the best longevity strategy. Maybe you should be doing yoga instead. But
Mm-hmm.
that would kill you. It would kill your soul,
Yeah.
right? So it's, what, guys, it's find joy in what you're doing, because the joy piece is a massive piece of
Yes.
aging well. And we forget that.
And I think community as well. If you have
So
a if you have a $2 million routine, you probably, aside from the fact that you're probably spending a lot of time on it, a lot of stress, and a lot of people won't be able to keep up with you. How many other people are willing to spend $2 million a year on their longevity? Not even health, but really like longevity.
mhm,
And how many people can you just, talk a regular conversation with? Until today, I don't think there is that we have found a better strategy for health span and longevity than having a community.
absolutely.
Yeah. So I think
Absolutely.
probably, and obviously it's at some point, something that is important to you strays into the realm of some kind of dysmorphia, right?
Mhm.
Um,
Mhm.
I remember Dr. Josh Axe talking about um, trying to, like, being super anal about what you're eating, what you're putting in your body, as a type of, it can go into a type of like eating disorder as well.
Yeah.
So
Orthorexia.
yeah, so I think everything has to be in homeostasis, right?
Yeah.
Physically, mentally. Yeah. So as far as, like, we talked about, like, aesthetics, we talked about things that keep you young in general, what to do after procedures, a little bit what to do before. What are the things that are exciting when you talk about, talking about V cells? I remember talking to someone about V cells about 10 years ago,
Of course you were.
and thinking that it is probably crazy. um, Obviously, back then there were nothing else to compare it to. There was no,
Mhm.
no other ability to kind of rewind ourselves to a more youthful state with a laser.
Yeah.
um, what are some of the things that are interesting to you, as far as how they become reality in years to come?
Well, I mean, look, all this work that's happening in the regenerative space with stem cells,
Hmm.
very small stem cells, exosomes, like all these, and I mean, and taking it to the next level, even gene therapies, which, I mean, we joked a little bit at the beginning. There's a gene therapy right now that a lot of people are kind of experimenting with in the biohacking world, which is they've taken a piece of a gene, they've spliced it into E. coli, which is like a bug, a bacteria.
Hmm.
They inject it into the body. It inhibits
Myostatin. Myostatin.
myostatin. That's it. And now you're free to make all this follistatin so that you increase your lean muscle virtually effortlessly and burn fat. That's a little bit crossing the line for me. right? That I'm not ready to do that. But those things are coming down the pipes. But what's even more interesting to me in that realm is now we can look at conditions like, for example, Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, which is goes for short as EDS, which can be crippling to people. These are people who genetically don't produce collagen, certain types of collagen,
Yeah.
depending on the individual in their case, effectively. And so they suffer from crazy stuff, right? They're hypermobile, their organs don't hold in place in some cases. Some of them have to have their teeth pulled. They can't regulate their own blood pressure. Well, the people who are working on the follistatin problem are also working on how can we fix those genes for people. That's amazing. Like that's a game changer. So not only, as we're pushing the envelope in longevity and health span, what I think is really exciting is we're seeing how these therapies are also bringing along the therapies that can really help people who are suffering with diseases that have no answer
Yeah.
because their body just isn't making what they need to be making, and there's no solution. Like
100%. I think sometimes it's hard. It's hard for these two. Sometimes we infer one from another. Like we look at this disease, whatever that may be, we solve that disease, and we're trying to then make a drug for longevity. I think that's sometimes doesn't translate very well, or the hopes that one would lead to another would be is kind of difficult to lead to. It's like the pressure to legalize cannabis in the United States a lot of the time is kind of the route is, okay, let's make it medical because it can help with pain and this and that, and then let's legalize it completely, kind of following that
yeah.
thought flow, right? So sometimes it's a little bit harder to go from one thing to another. But there are things, for example, what we look at is we have our ProCare, which is the cellulitic product, and a lot of people are using it because it also eliminates or lowers a protein called progerin, which is something that pushes aging in the skin, and progeria is a disease that if someone doesn't kind of know what it is, I tell them, do you remember the old Robin Williams movie where he grows really old really fast? So that's basically progeria. The problem is that in the movie also they made him a full-sized human being, which is a different, you don't.
Was that Brad Pitt? Oh no, Benjamin Button was going the other way. Right. Okay.
But Robin Williams had an really cool movie where he's basically like a 9-year-old kid, but he already looks like his whatever he was back then.
Right.
But they also, so normally these people don't grow to 6 foot tall.
Yeah, they stay little. They stay small and get really old. Yeah.
So that active ingredient is also looked at as far as progeria and people that have problem with progerin. They use ProCare very successfully, but most of the time, the jumping between the two, acute disease and a longevity strategy can be a little, challenging.
Well, and it gets poo-pooed a little bit by, you've got a researcher who's trying to solve a life-threatening problem. And somebody comes along and goes, hey, I think this could make my skin look better. And they're like, are you serious right now?
Yeah.
But, on the other hand, if you can channel it into making other people's skin look better, you will make so much money that you'll be able to fund the research for the very rare disease that is life-altering for a few people.
The Elon Musk model of making the car cool so it can, change the roads, right? Change
the paradigm.
Paradigm, yeah. So that's cool. Yeah. So Nathalie, we've talked for about an hour here, which we can, I think, do for forever, basically.
Yeah.
So maybe your podcast is definitely a podcast that I'm addicted to. I am a scoop that you keep hearing because I'm telling it to different people. But your Facebook group, I was a member of your Facebook group way before we met in person.
Oh my God, that's hilarious.
Yeah, and in general, I value you as an individual very much. But what I really think you're excellent as an aggregator of information. I think you have a gift. So where can people, what's the best way to kind of consume the things that you're interested in?
Thanks, Amitai. So as Amitai said, there's the Biohacking Superhuman Performance, which, I'm as big a fan of Biohacking Beauty as Amitai is of mine. So we form a little mutual admiration club. There is the Facebook community, which is the Optimizing Superhuman Performance group. But I also have a private membership community now on Mighty Networks, which is much smaller than the Facebook group, but allows us to do really interesting things. And as a matter of fact, Amitai, we still need to get you scheduled in there as an expert to do. We do live Q&As with experts on a regular basis, and we do little self experiments that guided as a group for people who want to participate. It's a pretty neat little community. So, and then of course there's Instagram, which is just Nathalie Niddam, and everything that I do, my newsletter, all that is on my website, which is natniddam.com.
Fantastic. And everything's going to be in the show notes. Nathalie, you are, again, we love you. I love you. You're incredible. And I hope to continue having these amazing conversations with you on air, off air, on phone, off phone, whatever that is.
Likewise. I feel the exact same. Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. Take care. Before we wrap up today, let's answer some listener questions. If you want your question answered on the podcast, drop a review on Apple Podcasts and we'll answer it in our next episode or an episode that is suitable for those questions. So the first question we got is about the BioShield, our SPF, which protects you also against EMF, blue light, and pollution. And the question was, should we reapply BioShield and how often? So because it's based on zinc oxide, technically speaking, you don't need to reapply it every 2 hours unless you're sweating or you're going into the ocean and things like that, which I would then reapply it. But in most cases, you can reapply it or you can apply it in the morning at the end of your routine after your care moisturizer, and go about your day. That, as far as this is concerned, if you are sweating, if you did wash your face or you were in the water, yes, you should reapply. The second question we have is about our eye cream. Is that moisturizer as well as a serum? What's the premise there? So yes, it provides a lot of active ingredients. You could refer to it as a serum and a cream in one. What I do specifically to increase hydration around the eyes, I'm going to apply it first, and then when I apply my care moisturizer, I actually apply it also around the eye contour, and that seems to give me the best results. If you're a user of the hyperbaric mask, this can go around the eyes as well. So that's as far as the eye care. And the third question is about what is the difference between care and pro care? And that's actually a question we get a lot, and there might be some messaging there that we should work on, but they are actually meant to be used together rather than one or the other. That's why the word care is there in both of them. So pro care is a serum and care is a moisturizer. Pro care takes care of specific genes that are not functioning optimally as we grow older, mainly collagen, elastin, and hyaluronic acid genes. It also eliminates senescent cells, which we have a whole podcast about, but basically they're cells that didn't die correctly and are left, and they're basically creating dysfunction in our skin. We can eliminate them with Pro Care. Care obviously is our staple product with NAD precursors and some peptides and some 9 other supporting molecules, such as patented enhanced fermented resveratrol and some other things. So really, it is more of a longevity product. Together, they work very well. First, applying Pro Care and then applying Care. If you needed to apply it once a day, apply it in the morning. I'm talking about Pro Care. If Care goes twice a day, if you wanted to use it twice a day, you are welcome to do that as well, as far as Pro Care and Care. So I hope that answers the question. You can obviously write to us if you need more clarification. Again, for your questions to be answered on the podcast, leave them in a review on Apple Podcasts, and we'll answer them in our next episode, or in an episode that is specifically designed for that question. Thank you very much and have a great rest of your day.